Third wave that is going to affect the children. Now that is a myth. Now that's been busted especially by the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and also talks to us about how the entire population, whether those who have not been vaccinated or those who have not been infected before, they could also be chances of getting themselves infected with COVID. But however, our focus today is going to be how well is Karnataka as a state prepared to handle this third wave. Just about 2 to 3 weeks ago, we see the government had formed a task force, a high-level committee exclusively looking into how to analyze and control the third wave. Also speaking to some of the experts, we understand the Karnataka government, in fact, is yet to come up with blueprint. But today we will be talking to some of the experts to understand the situation, the overall scenario over the last 1 year, what exactly have they learned and how well prepared are they. Well, thank you, Doctor, for joining us. Dr. Srikanta, you're a part of basically the task force team that was formed about 2 weeks ago. You know, when we are going to look at the number of surgent cases of COVID, and you're automatically going to see a lot of MISC cases, and you need ICU beds. Your government hospitals, they don't really have a setup, something called the pediatric ICUs at all. Now, how exactly are you all planning to come up with, the last moment of setting up of an infrastructure?
Right. So, I would beg to differ there. In Bangalore, we have 3 government hospitals. One is Indira Gandhi, the other one is Boring Institute, and the last one is Vani Vilas. They have reasonable number of PICU beds and also have significant number of manpower. On the same note, we also have significant number of private hospitals which cater significant number of pediatric patients in their pediatric ICUs, right, including ours. So what I would say is we have number of beds in the hospitals, including government medical colleges, private medical colleges, as well as some of the district hospitals. The only thing is we have to strengthen them. So strengthening of PICUs, that is, if there are 6-bedded PICUs or 7-bedded PICUs, if we are able to upgrade it to a 20-bedded PICU, and the HDUs which are already there, which have been catering to adult patients, if they can be upgraded to PICUs, catering to pediatric population, and converting the COVID care centers or COVID wards into HDUs or oxygen bedded hospitals, it can go a long way, and that is what the recommendation is going to be all about. So our recommendation to the government of Karnataka will be how to strengthen infrastructure which is already existing. So you cannot create infrastructure in 3 months' time, that everybody knows. The only recommendation that we will be giving as a part of COVID task force will be strengthening the infrastructure which is currently available, and how do we strengthen them, and how fast we can implement those recommendations to make sure we are able to cater a significant number of population. And just to give you number wise, so if we are predicting a third wave in pediatric population, we are looking at almost 60 to 70,000 pediatric cases becoming severe.
This is in Karnataka?
This is only in Karnataka. Okay. And if we divide it in district wise, we will be significantly seeing number of cases to rise in Bangalore and other districts also. Okay. So on an average, we require almost 500 beds per day.
ICU beds you're talking about?
ICU, day on day. So that is 5,000 beds we require all over Karnataka for pediatric severe infections.
Do we have that?
So now if I have to tell you, we do not have so many beds, but yes, we are giving recommendations to increase the bed strengths to 5,000 so as to cater to almost all the population.
How well is Karnataka prepared?
Right. So as we can all see that we were definitely ill prepared during both first and second pandemics, and second pandemic has definitely left us wide open in terms of both infrastructure, manpower, and we've been running from end to end for basic necessity like oxygen. So coming to third wave, how prepared are we, or are we going to be really prepared for it? We are looking at a blueprint that is being spoken about as we discuss now, and we have formulated a blueprint for it which will be submitted to Government of Karnataka either today or tomorrow. And depending on that blueprint, most probably Government of Karnataka should take necessary steps so as to not only prevent third wave but also mitigate the risk of significant infections in the third wave. So in that report, we will be submitting a lot more about the infrastructure which is either suboptimal or non-existent in some of the districts of Karnataka, like like Haveri or Koppal. So they are districts which have very limited amount of resources, where we are giving recommendations to not only strengthen those areas, but also strengthen areas which are already having PICU support, the HDU supports. So we are giving a holistic approach of strengthening these resources, not only for this pandemic, but also for many more years to come.
Okay, well, doctor, I want to ask you this as well. If you realize how, there was a sudden outburst of especially the cases here in the state, and all of a sudden people ran out of beds. There were no beds at all, absolutely no beds. You had also no oxygen. There was shortage of drugs as well. We see that there is a lack of COVID management over there. Of course, it is also in the hands of the task force. We see that the task force, couple of times, at least 4 to 5 times, they sounded the alarm. But the government sat on it. Now, how is the government reacting now?
So government now is really proactive. Government is asking a lot of recommendations for not only infrastructure development but also manpower development, because having infrastructure at one hand and not having manpower is again detrimental, and again having significant manpower and not having infrastructure, again that is detrimental to not only doctors and the patients but public at large. So the currently the recommendations of the third task force, that is for particularly pediatrics, is recommending about having a holistic approach where you not only have infrastructure, manpower, but also you have drugs and every other thing like such as psychosocial support, and even to a matter of fact even have real-time data and statistics so as to predict which area is going to have significant number of cases, and to make sure the resources are shifted from one place to another place in case a particular area has any surge in the infections.
Okay, right. If I could go across to Dr. Sagar, who is of course an expert in MISC cases. Yes, doctor, in the last 1 year, if you can provide us the data as far as the MISC cases are concerned, and also if you can give us a national perspective when you're comparing it with other states, how severe was it in Karnataka? Are we still continuing to report such cases?
So to give a perspective, MISC, the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, is an immune reaction of the body post-COVID. So most of these children who get this syndrome have recovered out of COVID in the last month. And typically this develops within first few weeks after recovery from COVID. And I would roughly put as 0.5 to 1% of children who get infected may develop MISC. So the total number of MISC would be directly proportional to the total number of infections that you're going to see in the community.
Right.
Naturally, with the second wave, not only the adults in the community, a large number of children got infected. Fortunately, most of them had mild infections. But then whether they had mild infections or moderate infections, 1% of these children would develop MISC.
So are you telling me that whether the children is, whether they are symptomatic, asymptomatic, they are also still prone to MISC?
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
So the basic symptoms of COVID infection, whether it is mild, moderate or severe, do not determine whether you're going to develop MISC or not. In fact, to the contrary, most children who have developed MISC that we have seen had very mild COVID infection in the previous month.
Yeah.
Now, to give you a perspective, if I say 150,000 children got infected due to COVID.
This is in Karnataka?
Yeah, so that's the number that we are quoting right now. You can put the number at 1%, what it would mean is 1,500 children. But the problem here is almost half of them need ICU care, pediatric ICU support.
This is the MISC cases?
Yeah, this is only the MISC cases
Okay.
I'm talking about. Now one must understand that COVID infections in children, the acute COVID infection has been mild to a large majority even in the second wave.
Okay.
However, what is troubling us right now as the second wave is going down is the MISC cases. To give a perspective, in our hospital here at Aster, every day for the last 20 days we have admitted a new child with MISC, and almost 70 to 80% of them needed ICU support. At least one of these children needed ventilation. So it can be as severe as that. Now, if I give the country's perspective, a few thousand in our state, several thousands in the country would in the next 2 months develop MISC, and you can understand, even if I say 40 or 50% need ICU support, that's a big number.
That's a big number,
And
yes.
that is because we are talking about the pediatric ICU, which is not like creating a miniature ICU of the adult ICU. You need a different manpower set, and you also need a whole lot different infrastructure. Dr. Chetan, who is the intensivist, would be able to handle that better. But what I'm saying is, the first wave in the month of November and December, we did see a lot of MISC cases. From January, it went down. Because typically, this happens within 2 months of COVID in the community.
Okay.
Now, because you had a surge in the month of April, the maximum in the second wave, I would say, the month of May, June, July, we are seeing MISC cases, and it is going to continue for the next 1 month at least. And we are preparing ourselves because ICU support is definitely needed in a large number of these children.
Okay, so you're telling me that even if your COVID cases are coming down drastically, but you're still continuing to see an increase in MISC cases? Is that what it is?
Yeah, you're right. In fact, this is the norm, that the moment the COVID cases start coming down, in the next 2 months, we see a lot of MISC cases. What happened in UK, what has happened in several other countries, what happened in India during the first wave. Because I can quote from our own numbers, we saw, I would say, across the country, a few hundred to thousands in November and December. But then the number came down, and with the second wave, the whole country is again seeing a few thousand cases of MISCs.
Yeah.
And let me also highlight, unlike the first wave, the second wave has affected the length and breadth of the country. The concern is the two-tier cities. I keep getting calls from northern part of our state. Several tier 2 cities are now having children with MISCs, and they are finding it difficult because of the lack of ICU support. They are doing their best. Most children with timely treatment recover, but you can understand if a child comes to us in hypotension, a low blood pressure, crashing to the ER, and if this is going to happen in small villages, it's going to be very difficult to handle them.
Well, I was coming to that question. If you realize, quite a lot of people, especially in the rural areas, now even though they experience certain COVID symptoms, but rather they just stay at home and treat themselves, they don't get even tested, but they go to the hospitals at the last moment. Now what really happens, especially with MISC cases, if that is the case, where if the parents, they assume it to be, it's a normal, a kind of a disease, or they try and treat the child there, and they fail to take the kid to the hospital, or maybe, they take the kid to the last moment. What happens then?
So the outcome depends on how early you get the child to the hospital.
Okay.
The moment you say last stage, it would mean that the child has breathing difficulty, his heart has started pumping very less. What we say is the myocardial function goes down and their blood pressure crashes, and such children, some of them may not make it. It is a life-threatening illness. Fortunately, we have been able to salvage almost all children that were admitted in our hospital. But I have some preliminary data to say across country that some children have died out of this illness, and the outcome...
Is it due to delay in treatment? Is that how it is? Or
Yeah, I think mostly it would be because of delay in seeking treatment, because the first 2 to 3 days it may just look like a viral fever to them or any other fever, but beyond day 3, day 4, they really become sick. The other problem is not all of them become sick. So keeping a close watch on these children in the first 2 to 3 days becomes of paramount importance, and having a good ICU support when it is necessary will definitely change the outcome. So the fear or the concern is that in the next 2 months we will continue to see these MISC cases despite COVID coming down in the community. And my prediction is that every time we'll have a surge of COVID, we will see MISC cases at least for 2 to 3 months.
Okay, well, doctor, if I can ask you this question, this is with regard to where, time and again over the last 2 to 3 months, there have been several experts, health experts themselves, coming out and saying that yes, we are going to see a third wave. Now, third wave is going to infect children, but that is not really something what we hear from the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Now, what exactly do you think that is?
So the stand of Indian Academy of Pediatrics is kind of very open. The whole idea of third wave is still very speculative. It is based on a more common sense prediction, because the first wave involved only 0.5% of the total population as children. Second wave, the age limits went down, so more middle-aged people, parents got affected, and the number of patients were very, very high. by that virtue, the number of children who got affected in the population went up from 0.5% to around 11%.
But I want you to tell me that how exactly, a lot of experts that we have heard in the couple of months, how exactly did they arrive at a conclusion saying it's going to infect the kids? Because of course you had a trend saying the first wave was your adults, then you had your 18 to 45. But how exactly are they arriving at saying it's only the children? But now it's been, of course, busted by the Indian Academy of Pediatrics.
So it was based on two basic principles. One is that we do not have a vaccine for children yet. So in spite of coverage of vaccine between 18 and above, the children will not be covered. So because the safety data and the vaccine availability for children is not yet regularized in India as of now. The second is that the nature of the virus is such that it has mutated over years and becoming more transmissible and more disease causing. So these were the two hypothetical situations based on which the prediction for a third wave involving more children was made.
Okay, all right. Now, I just wanted to take Dr. Sagar's question to you. He was just telling us about how soon after, when we are going to look at the number of surgeon cases of COVID, and you're automatically going to see a lot of MISC cases, and you need ICU beds. Coming to you with that ICU, the same question. You just told us that the blueprint is yet to be prepared by Karnataka government. Now, that itself, the first thing, is a delay. Now, how exactly is government planning to do so? Because your government hospitals, they don't really have a setup, something called the pediatric ICUs at all. It's only just a standalone, probably isolated hospitals like cases such as Rajiv Gandhi Hospital or one or two hospitals, whereas the maximum other hospitals, they do not have. Now, how exactly are you all planning to come up with, the last moment of setting up of an infrastructure?
Right. So I would beg to differ there. In Bangalore, we have 3 government hospitals. One is Indira Gandhi, the other one is Boring Institute, and the last one is Vani Vilas. They have reasonable number of PICU beds and also have significant number of manpower. On the same note, we also have significant number of private hospitals which cater significant number of pediatric patients in their pediatric ICUs,
right,
including ours. So what I would say is we have number of beds in the hospitals, including government medical colleges, private medical colleges, as well as some of the district hospitals. The only thing is we have to strengthen them. So strengthening of PICUs, that is, if there are 6-bedded PICUs or 7-bedded PICUs, if we are able to upgrade it to a 20-bedded PICU, and the HDUs which are already there, which have been catering to adult patients, if they can be upgraded to PICUs, catering to pediatric population, and converting the COVID care centers or COVID wards into HDUs or oxygen bedded hospitals, it can go a long way, and that is what the recommendation is going to be all about. So our recommendation to the government of Karnataka will be how to strengthen infrastructure which is already existing. So you cannot create infrastructure in 3 months' time, that everybody knows. The only recommendation that we will be giving as a part of COVID task force will be strengthening the infrastructure which is currently available, and how do we strengthen them, and how fast we can implement those recommendations to make sure we are able to cater a significant number of population. And just to give you number wise, so if we are predicting a third wave in pediatric population, we are looking at almost 60 to 70,000 pediatric cases becoming severe.
This is in Karnataka?
This is only in Karnataka. And if you divide it in district wise, we will be significantly seeing number of cases to rise in Bangalore and other districts also.
Okay.
So on an average, we require almost 500 beds per day of
ICU beds you're talking about?
ICU, day on day. So that is 5,000 beds we require all over Karnataka for pediatric severe infections.
Do we have that?
So now if I have to tell you, we do not have so many beds, but yes, we are giving recommendations to increase the bed strengths to 5,000 so as to cater to almost all the population.
I was talking to Dr. Chetan about, what are the kind of problems that we are going to face in the coming days. And he was telling us that, yes, you can face a shortage of pediatricians, nurses, skilled nurses, but also at the same time, you have to be able to augment the beds. But like you said, you have to try and expand with whatever is existing infrastructure. the existing infrastructure, if you're looking at the ICU beds, the HDU beds, can they actually be accommodated for the pediatric care?
So yes, so basically the bed is not a problem. Beds can always be augmented. See, government was able to create 10,000 COVID care center beds all over Bangalore within a span of 1 month. So beds are easy to create. It is the manpower. It is the skilled manpower. It is the training of that manpower is what really is the matter of fact.
So we still lack there.
We significantly lack because the manpower that we are looking at not only has to have the trained skill sets, but also need to know what is the ground level. So if there is a surge in cases, how do we handle them? How do we handle the parents? How do we handle the media? How do we handle the politicians all around? So everything has to be taught in a period of 3 months, which is going to be really difficult. But we are having crash courses. We are suggesting for some crash courses so as to make sure that they are at least reasonably well prepared, at least to handle that first surge in cases. And we have backup telemedicine. We will have backup pediatricians or pediatric intensivists through telemedicine and through virtual portal to make sure that they can be handled reasonably smoothly. So
okay. If I could take that question forward to you, Dr. Sagar, there's an anxiety amongst parents. A lot of parents have been calling several doctors, well-known doctors, prominent doctors, experts to find out, if their child can be infected with COVID, if that's going to be very severe, because that's the kind of news that's been spreading around, that third wave can actually infect only children. What is that one word that you want to tell the parents?
I think fear is not the solution for any problem that we have. Nobody could actually predict that second wave would be so severe. So sometimes we are successful in predicting and sometimes we are not. The only thing we can do is have better preparedness. Now, speaking scientifically, at least in India, both during the first wave and during the second wave, though the number of children infected in the second wave went up, severe infections in children were a minority. Unless the virus mutates and changes a strain where it is going to selectively infect children, which at this moment doesn't appeal to the scientific senses, we don't think that children would be predominantly or disproportionately affected in the third wave. If you ask me, can children get infected? Yes. If you expose any child to the virus, he is likely to get infected, and when he is not vaccinated, then the chances of him getting infected or her getting infected is higher. But does that directly mean that they are going to get severe illness? The answer is no. So most likely, even if we get a third wave, hopefully children though would get infected but may not develop severe disease. But we are preparing for the worst does not mean that we should think worst would come. So I would just want to reassure the parents out there that things are getting prepared. Third wave is only a prediction, and there is no reason to believe that severe disease would happen in all children who get infected.
Basically, it's in the hands of the parents, not to panic about it.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Chetan, if you could tell us the word coming, what are you hearing from the Indian Academy of Pediatrics? What exactly is the talk like in terms of the third wave, the prediction that's happening? And also, if you could tell the parents, like how Dr. Sagar also was talking about how parents should not panic about it. We understand only 90 to 95% of the children will have mild symptoms, while the rest of the 5% we are looking at hospitalization, and then you have 1 to 2% with severe. So what is that final word that you want to talk to, tell the parents from especially the association?
So the message to the parents is the same. One is that we defaulted in the first and second waves by not following the COVID appropriate behavior. So COVID etiquette and getting themselves vaccinated is the most two important steps which the parents can do to help their children from getting the COVID. And as soon as the vaccine is available for younger age groups, first it will be opened up most possibly for 12 to 18 years of age. They should go ahead without fear and get themselves and their children vaccinated as early as possible. But till this whole COVID conundrum settles over the period of next 2 to 3 years, we still would want and urge the parents to follow the COVID appropriate behavior, inculcate that discipline within the children. So only the appropriate COVID etiquette as well as the vaccination is going to prevent them from getting severe COVID infections, and that will be the primary message as such.
Well, thank you, doctors, for joining us. That was a very good, varied perspective that you could provide. Also, giving us information on how well Karnataka is prepared. There were the doctors and experts here at Aster CMI telling us, of course, there is no need to panic, but it is for the parental population to be vaccinated, following the appropriate COVID behavior, and only then will you be able to ensure that your children, they don't get infected. And if at all they do so, there is nothing really to panic. All that they have to do is to be a little alert, ensure that they take the children to the hospital immediately and give the treatment that's required. Also, most importantly, what we understand from here, the COVID task force in Karnataka that's been set up to look into the analyzing and also controlling of COVID third wave. They tell us, yes, of course, in the next 1 or 2 months, you are going to see a spike in cases in children. At least about 50 to 60,000 children can be infected in Karnataka, which means on a daily basis, you will require at least 5,000 beds. But they give us a word that Karnataka will be prepared. With video journalist Pradeep, this is Shrija reporting for Mirror Now in Bengaluru.